Hi, I'm Lori, and I recently visited Tokyo DisneySea. Now, I have a lot of Disney fans in my family, so I've been to quite a few Disney parks in my time. But I probably wouldn't have visited DisneySea if it wasn't for my daughter, who really loves Disney. And she had planned to join me for the first part of a month-long trip to Japan and South Korea. So we carved out 2 days to visit Disney parks. But happily, she had a baby between the planning and the time of the trip, so she wasn't able to come. So I decided to just reduce the days to the 1 day at DisneySea so I could at least share that experience with her. Now, normally when I go to Disney with family, I just follow everybody around. But because I was going on my own, I had to download the Disney app, learn how to use it, learn about Happy Entry and Premier Access passes. And it took quite a bit of work to prepare for this trip. But I come from a family where you don't wander into the park, grab a cup of coffee, and then figure out what you're going to do. No, you have a plan of attack, and you have an actual touring plan with estimated times and everything, so that you can get through all the really good rides first thing in the morning, and then have the rest of the day to spend more leisurely enjoying what the park has to offer. I mean, the goal is that you don't spend most of your day just standing in lines. So I will share with you my magical Disney day, and you can see what worked and maybe how you'd want to adapt the plan to suit your needs. So here we go. So let's start at the beginning. I booked a room the night before my Disney day at the Ambassador Hotel in the Disney park. With the current exchange rate, it was a bargain for a Disney hotel. It also gave me happy entry or early access into the park. The Ambassador Hotel was cute, clean, and served its purpose. I woke at 6 a.m. on my DisneySea day, grabbed some breakfast, and arrived at the Happy Entry gate by 7:30 a.m. The Happy Entry is to the far right of the other gates. I had read from other bloggers that they sometimes open earlier than their posted time, which was 8:45 a.m., so thought I would line up early. It was continuously raining. I wore a rain jacket and poncho, but I left my umbrella behind because I thought it would be a nuisance. Big mistake. My feet were completely soaked by the time I got into the park. They let us through security at 8:30, then we waited until exactly 8:45 to be let into the park. I brisk walked to the ride Soaring, which is arguably the most popular attraction. While I was in line, I used the Disney app to request entry into Big Band Beat, which is a theater production that requires a reservation. However, I was denied entry. I also booked Toy Story and Believe Sea of Dream Premier Access passes. For Disney novices, Premier Access allows you to skip ahead in lines for the most popular attractions, but you have to pay. With the exchange rate, the Premier passes were between $10 and $15, so I thought it was worth it. There were only about 30 people in front of me in the Soaring line. They didn't open the ride until precisely 9 a.m. Once open, I was in the first group to ride the attraction. I've been on Soaring at other Disney parks, and it has always been one of my favorite rides. This version was the same, with the final arrival in Tokyo at the end. This ride never gets boring. It is just so well done and surprises me each time. After Soaring, I headed to Journey to the Center of the Earth, the second most popular ride. I was looking for the entrance when I saw 20,000 Leagues. I decided to jump on it since there were 0 people in line. The ride is probably one of the most underwhelming in the park, but I was in and out very quickly. I found Journey to the Center of the Earth. The ride was the best of the day for me, short but thrilling, and a great example of what Disney does best. I then walked to Indiana Jones Adventure. Since I was a solo rider, I was ushered to the priority access lane and pretty much walked straight onto the ride. From what I understand, this is only one of 2 rides at DisneySea that have single rider access. Raging Spirit is the other. The ride jostled me around a bit, but it was another fun ride. I had now completed 4 attractions by 10:30 a.m., so was making pretty good time. I felt like my morning plan was working well, and I could now slow down and enjoy the park more leisurely. I began to go on any ride I passed that had short lines. I then took the boat ride Transit Steamer, which was nice in that it showed me various areas of the park, a good way to get my bearings. I then took the Venetian Gondolas, which again had no line, but it was raining quite heavily. I was actually surprised they didn't serenade us on the boat. Anyway, at this point, I was starting to get hungry, but had a 3 p.m. restaurant reservation, so thought I would check out some of the popcorn that gets rave online reviews. I was hearing that people will stand in line up to an hour for the popcorn in the park. However, I walked right up to a kiosk and ordered curry popcorn, which was pretty fabulous. Next, I traveled to Big Band Beat, the theater production, because I read that if you show up, you might be able to get in. I arrived around noon and was told to get in a standby line in 20 minutes for a 12:55 show. At that point, it was raining miserably hard, so I just got in the line right away. I was happy I did because within 20 minutes they had ushered us inside the theater to wait for the show. I dried off, closed my eyes, and rested in my seat waiting for the show. We weren't allowed to take pictures, but the show was great fun. And I was surprised that it was in English, which made it even more enjoyable for me. I was glad I had figured out a way to make it work. I was also surprised that there were plenty of empty seats in the theater, so wondered why they deny so many entries for admission. It was now time for my Toy Story Mania Premier Access Pass, so I headed that direction. I've always liked Toy Story, maybe because it taps into my competitive spirit. I just think it is a riot. And hey, I smoked my team with this score. At this point, I had gone on all the major rides. I should note that Sinbad's Storybook Voyage was closed, and I opted not to go on Raging Spirits since I don't do loop-de-loop roller coasters. I did have extra time to go on more rides, so decided to go on Tower of Terror. I had never been on a tower ride at the other Disney parks I have visited. I had heard how scary the ride was, so I had just avoided it. However, I heard this one at Tokyo Disney was shorter and tamer, so I thought if I was ever going to give it a try, this would be the perfect scenario. The app indicated the line was only 45 minutes long, so I hustled over there and got in line. I had a lot of trepidation, but I'm glad I went, even if only to say I did it. It wasn't that bad, although I can't say I enjoyed it. There were handles on both sides of my seat and I gripped them tightly. I also kept my eyes shut almost the entire time. All the narration was in Japanese, so I couldn't understand what others were hearing. I still got the idea though, and it was certainly a visceral experience. My restaurant reservation was at the Restaurant Sakura, which was one of the few reservations available since I booked late. It turned out to be quite lovely. The restaurant was jutting out over the water, so it had some nice views, and the food was scrumptious, especially at this point in the day when I was so hungry. After eating, I caught the tail end of a special Lagoon parade, billed as a greeting for the soon-to-open Fantasy Springs section of the park. Then I continued to wander to find rides I hadn't gone on. My next stop was Aquatopia. It looked like one of the more interesting rides, but definitely wasn't a thrill-seeker's adventure. This is a first-hand view of the ride. I'm holding my camera perfectly still, but this is what the vehicle does. It twists, spins, and reverses randomly. I think young kids would enjoy this ride more than adults. I then went on Nemo and Friends Sea Rider, which was very cute. After that, I circumnavigated the park, taking video, wandering into stores, and seeing if there was anything I missed. I went to the Mermaid's Lagoon, which is all kiddie rides, but thought I would go on the Flounder's Flying Fish, since it was more my style of roller coaster, no crazy drops or loop-de-loops. I stood in line for 20 minutes until they announced the ride was shutting down. Darn! Not sure what happened, but it was probably weather-related. The Mermaid's Lagoon is really gorgeous, though, so I walked around and took it all in without going on any of the children's rides. Here are some images from inside the Mermaid's Lagoon. Quite stunning, and I'm sure a delight for children. I completed my loop of the park and had gone on every planned ride except for big city vehicles and the carousel. I decided to pass on both. I noticed it was about 45 minutes before the Believe Sea of Dreams evening entertainment on the lagoon, so I walked to the priority access area and was one of the first to plop myself down on a step and wait. It had finally stopped raining, so it was nice to just sit and rest. Although I can't understand why Disney doesn't build in real seats instead of making us sit on the ground, especially when they charge extra for it. I noticed that many Japanese carry these little pads around so that they can sit down and keep their bottoms clean. Not a bad idea. The show was fabulous, although they performed a modified version of it because of the weather. It was still spectacular and stretched across all the buildings and throughout the lagoon. Here are some short video clips of the show. I had an excellent vantage point, but thought I could have planted myself anywhere around the lagoon 45 minutes early and would have had a fine seat without paying extra for it. After the show, they announced that the evening fireworks were canceled, so I hightailed it out of the park, exhausted. There was a tram back to the Ambassador Hotel, but I decided to walk in order to get there faster. By the time I got back to the Ambassador to retrieve my bag, I had put in 23,000 steps and felt it the next day. Please note that I left the park about 2 hours early. If you decide to follow my touring plan, you will have time in the evening to go on some additional rides if you have the energy. All in all, I think I had a successful touring plan. It definitely met my needs. I have shared my touring plan in the description below. Feel free to adapt it to suit your needs. And you probably will need to make some changes to include the new Fantasy Springs area at DisneySea. I went 1 month before they opened that area of the park. There was one mistake I made that you will want to avoid, and that was booking a restaurant during one of the parades. I managed to catch the end of the parade, but I could have timed it better. So how does DisneySea compare to other Disney parks? I'd say it's one of the best. Definitely one of the most beautiful. I thought it was striking and it was pouring rain all day. I imagine it is even more brilliant in the sunshine when you can enjoy the outdoor areas. The park did seem a little limited with adult rides, but I think the addition of Fantasy Springs and the reopening of Sinbad's Storybook Voyage will rectify this issue. Now, I'm always looking for advantages to solo travel. With only 2 single rider lanes, there wasn't much advantage to traveling on your own at DisneySea. And frankly, Disney is a better place for sharing with family and friends than going solo. For senior travelers, the park is fairly easy to traverse. Just plan on putting some steps in. Please see my other Japan videos if you're planning a trip to Japan. I've left links in the description below. And if you'd like to follow my senior and solo travel journeys, please like and subscribe. Cheers!